Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m.
as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Benjamin, that is
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, you're with GB News. In a moment, headliners, but first, let's bring you up to date with tonight's headline. And the Metropolitan Police says it regrets that 6 anti-monarchy protesters who were arrested on the day of the coronation were unable to take part in their demonstrations. In total, 52 people were arrested on Saturday in London on suspicion of having plans to disrupt the event. 6 of those were from the anti-monarchy group Republic, and its CEO, Graham Smith, called the 6 arrests a direct attack on democracy. The Metropolitan Police say it was not their intention to prevent protests, but that the arrests targeted individuals who police believed at the time may have disrupted the historic coronation procession. Meanwhile, 4 new official photographs have been released of Their Majesties the King and Queen, as well as other members of the royal family. The portraits were taken on Coronation Day itself, with the King pictured in full regalia in the throne room at Buckingham Palace. Queen Camilla is pictured in the green drawing room and is wearing Queen Mary's crown and the robe of estate. If you're watching on television, our apologies. We seem unable at this stage to bring you those photographs. But the King also released a coronation message thanking all those who'd taken part in the historic occasion, and he pledged to rededicate his life to service. Meanwhile, news from the bank holiday weekend, and the Prince and Princess of Wales and their 3 children joined millions of people across the UK volunteering for the final day of coronation celebrations. The King's grandchildren were helping scouts in Berkshire today for the big help out. And after a day of painting and digging, they then toasted marshmallows and had a go at some archery. The Prime Minister was preparing food at a village hall in Hertfordshire, and he also commended everybody who had taken part. And lastly, Ukraine has accused Russia of firing drones at multiple cities over, including 30 in the capital, Kyiv. Officials also claim that Russia planned to take control of the key city of Bakhmut by tomorrow, which is Russian Victory Day. Meanwhile, President Zelensky will be meeting the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, tomorrow to discuss a new EU support package. Full details of that, if we get it, of course, right here, GB News. Those are your latest news headlines. Now, headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, and tonight we have a truly diverse panel on the People's Channel. Representing Scotland, it's Bruce Devlin. And representing the mentally ill community, it's Lewis Schaefer. Lewis, you read my joke off the auto cue and interrupted the joke. It was pretty harsh.
Sorry.
It was quite
It was harsh. Maybe needed to. Sorry.
Yeah, how are you doing anyway?
Well, I'm mentally ill, you just said. You better take that back. Because people might be watching this and they'd say, that's inappropriate,
and
really.
The mentally ill community wouldn't want to be associated.
You know what? I'm not doing that well, actually. I think this is going to be our worst show. I can just feel it. Because we're talking about
such a great thing to keep the viewers watching. Bruce, do you think it's going to be a great show to counterbalance that?
I think this is a deliberate ploy on Lewis's part to psych everyone out. And I just want to say I'm not here representing Scotland. I just happen to be from there.
Right.
Just happen to be from Scotland.
Lewis,
as you happen to be from America.
Should we start the show and do some headlines? Let's do that, and we'll get back to you in a minute. All right, let's have a look at the front pages. So we've got the Times, who have thank you each and everyone, and the Telegraph goes with PM skip the GP for common illnesses. The Eye has pass on higher interest rates to savers, big banks told. The Mirror goes with cost of living crisis, Bill's agony. That's about a bloke called Bill who's having a tough time. The Express has, we thank each and every one of you. And finally, the Daily Star goes with, we're in a real mess, but who can tell? And those were the front pages. All right, so let's kick off with the Express, Lewis. What do we got?
Well, we have the King, and I'm an American. I want to apologise that I'm an American, that I'm not British, and that I don't like the royal family. I mean, it has nothing to do with maybe the royal family is amazing, but I'm an American, and I was brought up disliking the royal family. Nick, whatever your name is.
That's fine. Nick. Get the host's name wrong. I don't have a big ego, don't worry.
And
I'll be Chris tonight.
And I see there is a place for the royal family, and I have to. I'm a Republican because my girlfriend is a Republican and she's English, and you got to do what you got to do.
I see where you're going with that. Yeah, because some people were tweeting at me, Lewis, like, who's the American? We've just had the coronation. He's dissing our king. Yeah. As a tactful person would come over and say, look, I don't totally understand your customs, but I respect your king. You didn't really go that way, did you? You were like, I hate your customs. But anyway, we don't need to dwell on that.
I did know this is a problem. And when your gracious, glorious queen died, they kept me off the air for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I wonder why that happened.
Yeah.
Bruce, what was your take on the coronation as a whole?
I'm kind of glad it's over. I think I'm a bit coronationed out. I've not had a coronation chicken sandwich, which was going to be a plan of mine, actually, because they had some nice ones in Marks and Spencer's, but I never got around to it. Did try and go and look at some of the procession, but I've said that on the channel all weekend. I did go up to one of the volunteers. I understand that they were all stressed and stuff, but I said, are we actually along the line of the official procession route? And the guy did say, what for? And at that point, I thought, I'm done with the rain. Right. I'm in here later and I'm going to go. So, no, glad it's done. And, look forward to my thank you.
It was a magnificent ceremony, and everyone got behind it. Everyone was being cynical in the lead up to it. But then most people got behind it, except a few sort of loser protesting people. And Penny Mordaunt had that incredible sword. Did you know that Meghan was at home Googling slightly bigger sword? That was, anyway, a little joke for you there. What were you going to say, Lewis?
I was going to say a couple of things. One is that there is a place for the monarchy in this country. And I think because of the way the politics is built up, there's so much power in Whitehall, in the government there, that there needs to be checks and balances, and that's what the king is. Secondly, there's a lot of love for the royal family over hundreds of years that you cannot take away from the people. But on the other hand, I tried to figure out, do people really like what's going on? I think they like the Queen. I'm not sure that they like this guy. Nothing personal. He's a 75-year-old guy. Why spend all this money? He might die the next day.
But I thought that as well. Not in a horrible way, but I thought, why...
But my way is horrible.
Why didn't they... No, you have to calm down. Now, deep breath, deep breath. I genuinely didn't understand why they didn't break with Constitution and just go to William, because I do understand people's outcry about the cost of money and all this, we're in a cost of living crisis and all that kind of thing. So I could have thought, if they wanted to be a more relatable, pared-down monarchy, do something a wee bit cheaper. Bring your own sausage rolls.
OK, well, I disavow everything that was said there, and I say God save the king. And let's move on and do the Telegraph with a new way to deal with the GP appointment crisis. Get the receptionist to have a crack at diagnosing you.
I don't think it's as simple as that, because I think the receptionists already think that they have a medical degree. What are your symptoms? What are your symptoms? Stop breathing, stop breathing. So I think what they're planning to do is try and give the receptionist some kind of training, some extra training, because I don't know if you've ever done it, but I've sat there with a mobile phone and a landline, you know, dialing one, or whatever, to try and get, I don't know, antibiotics for tonsillitis or something like that. So I actually think if this brings down a doctor's workload and the kind of trivial stuff that doesn't need an appointment, or a nurse, you know, maybe someone just needs to go and see a phlebotomist. Yeah. Which is a word I learned recently. So I'm working it into
that's exactly, you know what, that's what I've been thinking about, yes.
A lobotomist.
Yes,
a phlebotomist. Sorry, genuinely, that wasn't, the loophole. It's outrageous. So, yes, I think this is a good idea.
Now, my thing, Bruce, and you alluded to it there, is it was so un-English, perhaps un-Scottish as well, when the receptionist started asking you, what is wrong with you? It was like, you're the receptionist. Like, we don't speak about our symptoms. It was, like, really weird. That only came in a few years ago now. Yeah, I was very uncomfortable with it. Now they're going to take it even further. They're going to be, like, asking you more questions, like gatekeeping you, trying to keep you out of the system. What do you think, Lewis?
And they're bringing in 6,500 new people. I don't know where these people are coming from, but they're going to have to be trained. A large percentage of them are going to be incompetent. That's just the way life is. You know, a third is going to be incompetent, like 10% might be okay. And so who are these people that are going to be doing it? And I tell my friends in America that in my surgery, you've got to call at 9 o'clock, like all these surgeries. You got to call at 9. If you call it at 9 and you don't get it, then you're like messed for the entire day. You got to call at 12 o'clock.
That's the thing, because in my practice, you can call at 8 o'clock, and if you don't get anything down, you can call back at 1:30. But they do like to take the full hour for their lunch.
Yes.
So they're not really that bothered who's choking to death at lunchtime.
No, they're not.
My solution is Bupa. I hate to be so on-brand, you know, advertising private health, but you just call, you get a GP like on the afternoon, you type in something, you can call someone in like half an hour. It's amazing for people with like crippling hypochondria.
But that is, can I tell you what the real problem is?
Is it the death of love?
Well, it's part of that. It's part of that. Is that the whole that it's so centralized that you have Rishi Sunak involved in this thing.
He's in the doctors trying to diagnose people.
Yes, it's too much, the central government.
Sorry, Bruce, there's a Lewis Schaefer drinking game. One of them is the death of love. The other is centralised. Everything's too centralised.
Don't tell him in advance. Let them pay attention.
He's hit centralised. We're hoping to have a death of love later.
It is the number one issue in this country, is centralisation.
But is this going to work? They're calling them care navigators. And it says these secretaries, and it says they will assess, prioritise, respond and assist. I kind of suspect they'll question, deflect and discourage one day to try and keep people out of the system.
I'm not visualising a kind of loving vibe, a helpful vibe. It would be a bit like, nah, sorry, I've got 8 to 9 calls backing up. Are you dying? If not, could you phone back tomorrow?
Yeah, right. It's proving you're really ill to a receptionist.
And how can you do that over the phone? Over Zoom's a different thing, because you can do movement and show them your complexion.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Lewis will be able to prove he's ill. Go on, Lewis.
No, they give me amazing. I don't even know why I complain about it, because I am treated so well in this country by the NHS. I just blow kisses, even though I say bad things about you to everybody. But I'm actually having a discussion with a friend of mine in New York, and they're gung-ho NHS. They think the NHS is the most amazing thing. It is good in a lot of ways, but this is one of the problems.
OK, well, let's move on. We all agreed to do the mirror, but the graphic that's going to come up is the eye, so we have to do the eye. So what's the eye got? It's a boring story about interest rates.
Oh, OK. Well, basically, what they're saying is pass on higher interest rates to savers, big banks told, which is what's happened. The big banks, you know, as interest rates grow, what happens with inflation is somebody makes money off of inflation. The rich people make money. They figure a way. It's us losers don't make money. And who caused this interest rate big scam is the government printing money. And what caused the government to print money is the COVID
lockdown again. That's take another think at home, guys, because it's inflation caused by
lockdown.
So just to clarify, this is about passing on. The banks are being told to pass on these interest rates. They're saying that the people at the high street banks are sort of being unfair. They're not passing it on to the actual consumer. Any opinions, Bruce?
No, other than the fact that my mother, she's older than you, Lewis, she has complained for years that her saving rates have been so low. So is it a good thing that we're passing on higher interest rates?
Yes, it is. It's very... Well, do you know what it's done is we've had really low interest rates for 10 years, which enabled losers to pay their mortgage without working very hard. For years, they were basically protected so that those houses, those flats, say a flat in Nunhead, in Peckham, that I live in, could have become available if they had actually charged the reasonable rate. But because I wasn't, I'm saying me, because I wasn't billed the proper amount because the government kept interest rates down, and it basically screwed your mom up, and it screwed young people up.
I like that you point to me when you say young people. I like that. All right, let's have a quick look at the Daily Star then, Bruce, and it's a sort of AI will kill us all vibe.
Oh, I'm so sick of hearing about this. Are you not? Because I keep saying that. I don't understand. If we're having to make these things do everything, then surely they can be only as intelligent as we allow them to be, which I know is my layman way of looking at it. But Kieran Martin is the latest figure from the tech world to raise questions about the risks posed to the human race. Are you scared? Of this? I mean, I know you're frightful in general.
He's more scared of gout.
You want to know something? Keep on going, because I totally agree with everything you said. Is they're just trying to whip us into a frenzy over this thing? I don't even understand it, and they've been lying. The computers have been lying to us for years.
Well, the argument here is that AI is going to get so good at impersonating people that it will be impossible to tell the difference between what's true and what's false. We already have that a little bit with deep fakes and with the fake news in general, fake news folks, right? So it is going to get worse. I mean, I think isn't AI just going to be a massive change like the internet? You know, we all talked about the internet in a really naive way when it came out. All these old things like the internet's going to change society. Isn't AI going to be that big, so where it's just all-encompassing? I think it will.
Can I say no? I don't think so.
I think no as well.
Really?
I don't think so.
No, I don't agree with it. Please don't say that we're both wrong, because frankly, we won't tolerate it.
Yeah, we will not tolerate it. Bruce and I are on a team together. The truth is there's been this kind of radical change that's been going on for a long time, where you press number 1 if you want to speak to this person, press number 2 if you want to speak to this person.
Are you saying AI is like touch-tone phones?
In a way it is. In a way it is, because you think you're speaking to a person. We've been thinking that. Or it says, say what you're looking for, and somebody responds to it in a perfectly relatively reasonable way.
There's quite a big difference between someone going, hello, this is the bank, versus, not they say that exactly, but that was my generic example, versus AIs which actually have better bedside manner than GPs, we recently found out.
Do you know what?
Far more sophisticated, Lewis, than a touch-tone phone.
Well, can we have AI receptionists then, and maybe we'll get treated with some level of dignity and respect?
They would be a lot nicer. You're right, OK. I think we pretty much nailed that. So that's it for part 1. But coming up, anti-monarchy protesters might sue the police, and Labour consider raising taxes. Not sure how that one's news, but let's find out together after the break.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate. Both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, still here with the finest Scottish export since Mel Gibson. It's Bruce Devlin. And the finest American export since Prozac. It's Lewis Schaefer.
Yay,
My
Prozac.
first one was funnier. Keep the second one funnier as a good rule. So let's do The Independent. And anti-monarchy protesters are considering suing police after the coronation arrest, which were outrageous but also quite funny, Lewis.
Well, it's quite familiar. A friend of mine was once in a demonstration about 15 years ago, and they kettled her, and which means they put them in a barrier. It says anti-monarchy protesters considered suing Met Police after 52 arrests, and
apparently there was breaking news before that the police have now apologised, is what I heard. Anyway,
that's what I've heard, that they've apologised to 6, but not to the others. I mean, I think it's like, according to the leader of the Republic, he said that there's no grounds or cause for suspicion whatsoever, and they arrested these people. They went in and they arrested the night before they arrested, and I tell you, this is actually, I mean, can I say this? What made the royal family so powerful is that they allowed all criticism and all demonstrations as a sign that they were so powerful. They didn't care if anybody protested them. It was like, look how great we are. People are protesting. They're saying they want the Queen gone, that the whole thing gone, and they didn't bat an eye. Now they're batting an eye because I think there's a total breakdown in trust in all forms of life in this country, and I think they're feeling it, and that's a very if you like the monarchy, this is a very bad sign.
I imagine at some periods in history they probably frowned upon protest. And what about in the Queen's coronation? Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not totally sure what you're saying is factually correct. I mean, maybe people weren't. I don't know. I mean, then again, people.
I'm talking about 5-10 years ago.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so Bruce, I mean, what bothered me about this, just personally, is that suddenly all the people who don't care about protests were suddenly outraged that these people are getting arrested, but they didn't care about anti-lockdown protesters getting, aggressively arrested and things like this. And so now they care. And yeah, we should have protests, but they suddenly care about this one issue. What do you think?
But then the thing is, so this was rushed in, wasn't it, specifically for this? There was new legislation put in so that people couldn't target this, and there was new technologies such as facial recognition and all this. Where was all this database activity with the climate protesters and the oil people and all that kind of stuff? Because if they knew that they were going to do that, then they could have saved them, the public a lot of disruption. I'm not saying that the climate thing isn't something that we should be talking about, of course it is, but it just seems as though that this was brought in specifically for this, and how ridiculous now that people that get arrested, but then the thing was, they weren't even arrested for protesting, were they? They were like arrested with intent to protest.
Yeah.
Am I correct on that?
Yeah, and there was a suspicion that they would lock on, which is where you glue yourself to stuff, though it can actually technically
mean... What's with the glue?
Yeah. And the protesters were saying, well, we had no equipment to even lock on, but the thing is, locking on can technically even mean just linking hands so you can't get rid of people, so they could have locked on.
Honestly, I never understood the fascination with the glue and the wasting of food. I didn't understand that either. They're throwing soup at paintings and all that kind of stuff.
I know, it's ridiculous, but isn't there an element of... I mean, look, so I'm torn. I'm like, let's have absolute free speech, which is what I generally believe in, which means all protests. But wouldn't it also be quite fun to have an absolute monarchy, crush Just Stop Oil, crush BLM, all those things? And OK, I don't get my anti-lockdown protests, but we don't get any of those either. That would be the trade-off.
Can I ask a question? The point that I made was that reasonable about how the
faith in institutions?
How the monarchy is running scared by insisting on this.
Yeah, there's something in that. I do think this monarchy obviously is weaker than when the Queen was alive, and this could be seen in that way. Yeah, absolutely. But on the other hand, they didn't want the coronation to be disrupted, and there was a worry that they were going to set off rape alarms that would things like that would spook the horses and everything would be chaos. And of course, the protesters deny that. But that's one thing I heard as a reasonable concern. And isn't there an issue, although I'm a free speech person, isn't there an issue of decorum? It's the one day we're having a coronation. Can't you do your protest like any other day? Just as you know,
but then I suppose they would argue the whole point of protesting an event like that is to get maximum exposure for the protesters.
Yeah, because
although people don't agree with the way that Eradicate Climate or whatever these people are called, they are getting a message out there.
Yeah. OK, fair enough. Well, I was just giving the devil's advocate. Obviously, I'm pro-free speech. So let's have a look at the eye now. And another pointless country is complaining about the monarchy, Bruce. Well, I feel bad about that.
Yeah, I think you should. This is Dr. Terence Drew, and he is basically saying that they want reparatory justice, and they want, there's a load of other states within the Commonwealth that actually want to get rid of the monarchy. And I also think that Australia are looking to have a referendum on the abolition of the monarchy. Dr. Terence Drew has also supported calls for the British monarchy to apologise for its historic links to the slave trade. And he said, although the King has publicly expressed regret over slavery but has not issued an apology, there was also the problem in some people's eyes with some of the diamonds in the crown. Have they been taken from Africa, or I might have got that wrong?
Most of them were in Penny Mordaunt's sword. Carry on.
I don't think they were. I think that was pewter or bronze.
OK,
so that could have been dug up underneath the Stone of Destiny. And I don't even know if that came down for the coronation. Maybe it was too tired. So, yeah, they want an apology, but I'm not sure if Charles is going to offer one.
Yeah, and all these countries, Lewis, are they're all chipping in now. We've got Jamaica, Grenada, and like Bruce says, Australia, Belize. They're all thinking about leaving. There's a huge list of them. It's kind of what you said, isn't it? Like the monarchy's vulnerable, so they're all like, oh, we'll just all leave now.
Yeah, they're vulnerable. And the fact is, what is the monarchy? What has Britain done for these countries anyway? They're not. There's no. They're under the umbrella of the United States.
United States?
Yeah.
Why you guys are claiming you own all these countries?
No, but I mean, no one's invading St. Kitts and Nevis. Okay? No, they have no threat.
Putin might have a crack at it next.
Are we sending them any money? If we were sending them money, I'm sure that they will say.
I'm sure they get loads from being in the Commonwealth. They get loads from us. I don't know the specifics, but I'm pretty sure they get loads.
And what he said, the country is not totally free with King Charles. I would say, and many people would agree with this, a lot of people would agree that this country is not free with a king.
But what's going to be so great when they leave? What are they going to get by just, you know, it's a fairly formal title anyway. Are they going to have this great freedom when they suddenly leave us?
Well, do you know what happened with Australia back? Do you know what happened with Australia? That they kicked out the Prime Minister in Australia in the 1970s, whatever the guy's name is, and they kicked him out. So, and the King could do that with Rishi Sunak too. I mean, he's not going to right now, but
okay. All right, well, let's move on. I feel bad for what I said about St. Kitts and Nevis. It's not a pointless country. It's a pointless dual island nation. So let's do The Guardian now. And the Labour Party are considering higher taxes, which is a bit like a bear considering defecating in the woods, Lewis. See what I've done?
Yeah, that's quite funny. It's quite funny because that's what they do. They raise taxes. But this is one of those questions, which is this country. It's called Labour considering higher taxes on foreign buyers of homes. And yesterday, there was a story where they said that Labour was thinking about preventing foreign ownership of homes. So this is saying that they want to put taxes. I think they realize that they make too much money off of foreign buyers. And in a borough like mine, which is Southwark, basically the entire industry of the entire town is international bankers and international developers building in Southwark, building tower blocks in Southwark, and then giving the council I don't know what the proper word is, taxes or kickbacks or something.
Backhander.
No, it's right. It might be a backhander. I'm not saying it is, but even the money that's given out, and it says overseas buyers would be banned from purchasing. Listen to this. More than 50% of homes in a development. That means Labour is happy with foreigners. 49.9%.
But if you think about the property that overseas buyers are buying, I think that may be the problem because it's really, really expensive real estate, isn't it?
No, you're thinking. You're thinking. Sorry,
sorry. I'm about to be told what I'm thinking.
Was that wrong? Was that wrong? I mean, that was very aggressive on my part. I was being very aggressive.
Don't back away now. Let's hear it.
I was going to say because I left out the major point is we're all thinking about these multi-million-pound houses in Kensington and whatever it is in Mayfair, but these are houses that are being bought in in like poor areas of Lewisham and Peckham that are being sold off plan. The Aylesbury estate, the New Aylsham estate, the Haygate estate. So
But they're still expensive enough that the vast majority of people can't go and buy off plan.
Yes, in this country, yes. But
what about this rule to make new developments available to first-time buyers only for a fixed period? I mean, this happened in my area. There was a shared ownership, and it was like only for first-time buyers. Then when they couldn't sell them, it was suddenly anyone. But we need something like this, don't we? I mean, we've got to do something about housing. I don't know if it's this. I don't know if this is going to work. I mean, Toby Young was saying on this channel earlier, if you say that people can't buy, you just reduce supply, and we've already got a supply and demand problem. Also, some people would say immigration is an issue with this. I don't know. What about, we need to help first-time buyers or something?
Well, we need to help first-time buyers. That sounds like we need to print money and give it to developers, which will then... So at the end of the day, that's the international developers who will make money, and they will give the council a certain amount of the money, and then the council will spend the money buying votes.
All right, well, that's... I don't know if we have to apologise for that, but let's do the mail now. And the EU...
That's what politics is, sorry.
Shall I do my link? Yeah.
Yeah.
The EU is delaying its planned fingerprint checks, and it's not like them to be bureaucratic and ineffective, Bruce.
No, but they don't want a repeat of what happened at Easter, because we've got the Parisian Olympics coming up, and they're worried there will be carnage of people trying to get there. So they are going to delay these further.
Yeah.
And everyone's always, all the Remainers are always worried about, my holiday's being ruined by delays. But for once, this is not Brexit's fault. It's the EU's fault, Lewis. And that's why I like this.
Yeah, well, it's more centralization, but this time it's European centralization. And what they want to do is, I think it's the Europeans want to get close. Basically, it's the Europeans having a one-state kind of system. From what I know, they don't have the database, so that if someone enters the country in Germany and they leave in France, that they will be recognized for how long that they've stayed and stuff like that yet.
OK, well, I mean, this is a pretty dry story. I think we can probably move on. For a light-hearted show, this is one of the most difficult stories to make interesting. Yeah. Why even go to the France Olympics? I mean, it's just going to be a trans person beating some women at sports in France. Am I right? I just wanted to say something to make that exciting. But that's it for part 2. But coming up, WhatsApp might leave the UK. The BBC needs some cash, and the Wuhan scientists are back. I miss them. See you in 2 minutes.
Thank you.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop
failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's look at the Telegraph. And the scientists linked to the Wuhan lab are back in business. Such good news, Bruce.
Well, for them, perhaps. So EcoHealth, who's run by the British-born zoologist Peter Daszak. Is that how you say his name? Daszak?
It could well be.
OK.
Daszak.
Daszak, right, OK. So under the terms of this new grant, EcoHealth will receive just over £450,000 for each of the next 4 years to continue work on it, and I quote, bat origin coronaviruses. It has committed, however, not to subtract any work to China, collect new virus samples from the wild and engage in any recombination or so-called gain-of-function research. So,
yeah, I mean, I love that. It's nice that they've said, oh, we're not going to do that again. It kind of feels like The Big Short, you know, that movie when they do, like, this subprime mortgages and everything collapses, and at the end it's like they start doing them again. I mean, they're back doing it again, Lewis. Why?
Yeah, well, I think it's as simple as they want access. They want access to the files. And I think that this is, you know,
which files?
Their files. They got years of research. They said they're not going to do any more research. They just got the data. So they want to, basically, they want to be let back into the office to continue to work, to finish off the business that they have.
Are they still working from home?
They've got this stuff in the office. I mean, this story is very difficult for me because there's such a breakdown in trust. I don't trust anything that these people say.
Which people?
The people at Wuhan, anybody related.
I think that's fair enough. I mean, the people at Wuhan are a bit discredited. If you're the Wuhan lab, you're like, hey, trust us. I think that's not just you being paranoid, Lewis.
Right, and I don't trust anybody at the National Institutes of Health. That's Anthony Fauci's territory. I don't trust anybody who's a virologist or an epidemiologist.
All of them. There were good ones, Lewis. There were good ones that were fighting against it and giving another opinion.
You have to be proven otherwise. You have to be proven that I can trust you. And I think anything that's, first of all, it's in the Telegraph, number one. It can't be trusted.
I think that is the main concern of epidemiologists and virologists. Have I got the trust of Lewis Schaefer? They wake up and ask themselves. But my favourite bit was it says the primary goal is to understand why coronaviruses present a risk of spillover, not to hunt down the origin of COVID. And that's convenient, isn't it? It's like, couldn't we do with hunting down the origin of COVID? Isn't that kind of important?
Well, because I think the reason they don't even believe it.
You're worried. You want to say something, but you're worried about Ofcom. That's the feeling I got there. That was a kind of, you're worried about what you can say.
What do you really want to say?
What I want to say is, I'm 60% sure there's no such thing as a virus.
Oh yeah, he said that before. We're used to that from you, Lewis. You think it's sort of...
I'm just 60%.
Maybe
he's gone down to 60. That's quite moderate from where he was before.
I'm trying to be well balanced. I don't know. I got this gut feeling that it's all a lie. That everything we've been told is a lie.
That gut feeling could be a virus. Check it out. Maybe we should move on because this next song is actually very good. Let's do unless you have something you're desperate to say, but you look desperate. You sure?
I look desperate.
To say something about Lewis's virus.
No. I'm just thinking that you should maybe have like some kind of pendulum that's going, you know, between 60, 70, maybe up, depending on his mood.
Yeah, but he's got the Twitter out there, so that's all that matters, really.
Yeah. Is this working
that's
for
where,
you?
That's where people can direct abuse to Lewis Schaefer.
But direct abuse to Lewis Schaefer. I said this was going to be my worst show ever. I apologize.
I mean, Lewis, you sort of projected. That's called manifesting. You like talk yourself into that.
You're right. This has been amazing. It's been amazing.
The last great, just for me. Why don't you make the last half or the last little bit your best ever?
It's going to be amazing. You can Google.
Yeah, just for me, that would help. All right, let's do the Guardian now. What's
Guardian.
That? Well, can I do the link and then we'll do it? Just for tradition's sake. So apparently WhatsApp might leave the country rather than show the government their messages. You can probably relate to that, Lewis.
Yeah, no one wants to see somebody's messages, and it's like because WhatsApp could disappear from the UK over privacy concerns, ministers told, because of another new law that Britain is putting in, which says we want to see what's going on in actually messages. This is before you've done anything. They want access to the messages. And the thing about WhatsApp, what makes WhatsApp really great is that no one can see it. Like, I've got a friend of mine, and he deletes every single message after he sends it to me. Every single message. He's the most paranoid. Oh, that's you, Nick.
That's a smart thing to do. That's especially, Lewis, with you. Yeah. I never know where you're going to share it with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You might share it with Wuhan.
Yeah.
But so, Bruce, this looks like probably a mistake from the government. They're going to bring this online safety bill, and it's going to sort of encroach upon end-to-end encryption. And WhatsApp are just going to leave because 98% of their customers are out of the country anyway.
But I think this has already taken place in the Scottish Parliament. I think they have thrown out the medium of WhatsApp. I don't think any of the ministers or any of the staff are allowed to communicate. I might have that wrong.
It sounds like something.
I'm sure it was, and that was passed quite recently. So, do you send stuff that you're worried that people get a hold of?
Yeah, that it's really boring, basically.
It's all about diet and gout and diabetes. But this is, I think it's mad because you want to use WhatsApp can't guarantee their customers this end-to-end encryption if the online safety bill comes in. And basically, they're calling it a game of chicken here. Lib Dem was calling it a game of chicken because really the government's banking on WhatsApp not leaving the country. But they may well just leave. If only 2% of their business is in the UK and the government's saying, we want to look at your messages and ruin your promise of end-to-end encryption, why wouldn't they just leave? And then what are we going to use? Some sort of schlonky MySpace version of WhatsApp?
But what software or how can the government, go through and end end-to-end encryption?
Well, apparently they can. Apparently this would, in the online safety bill, the wording is ambiguous whether it would allow them to sort of look at the messages or not. It says the bill provides no explicit protection for encryption, and if implemented as written, could empower Ofcom, and we love Ofcom, of course, but to try to force proactive scanning of private messages, so they would have a look at them.
But what is it they're hoping to find? Because you remember when there were the riots and it was all to do with BBI, it was BlackBerry messaging, wasn't it? It was BlackBerry instant messaging. So were they able to look into that?
Well, you're asking me about BlackBerry technology. I never had one, Bruce. I've got no idea.
Right.
But, I mean, I don't know. The online safety bill's a disaster all the way around.
I think there's something that's going on in this country, nothing personal, which is it was the one thing about this country was there was a sense of freedom. I mean, maybe there wasn't the Constitution that said there's freedom, but there was freedom, and now they just want the police and everything. They just want to control people.
Yeah, we're sliding into authoritarianism.
Yeah.
All right. With that in mind, let's move on and do the Times. And the BBC are being told to look for new sources of funding to replace their current model of threatening old ladies, Bruce.
Well, this is the thing, because my mother, going back to my mother, she feels that their ads are really Orwellian in as much as we're watching you and all this kind of thing, and she won't give them the money up front because she feels that they're too demanding and pays in instalments. I think it gives her something to do during the day, and that's fine. But the BBC was threatened with the removal of the licence fee from 2028 by former Cultural Secretary Nadine Dorris. The licence fee has been frozen at £159 for the past 2 years, ahead of an estimate increase of around £13 in 2024. But do you believe in defunding the BBC?
Well, I do believe the licence fee is anachronistic, and I don't like the model and how they do it and the threatening letters.
Yeah.
And if they were totally impartial, which I know is almost impossible to do, then you'd say, OK, maybe. But because they basically despise large sections of the country, imagine this. Imagine if we had a GBNews licence fee. I mean, it'd be hilarious, first off, right, forcing people to pay for it. But then again, that's how a lot of people feel with the BBC licence fee. They feel like they're not representing my views and they're forcing me to pay for it. And you only have to imagine a GBNews licence to imagine, like, the uproar, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Isn't that the equivalent?
I think it is. I think because personally, I mean, I think it's a state propaganda service, and what makes this country so amazing is they're making the people who are victims of the propaganda have to pay for it on a monthly or yearly basis. And so it's kind of like, well, okay, if you're going to give me propaganda, why should I pay for it? Figure out a way for coming up with the money yourself.
But what would be another way of then funding it? to your
Maybe it
mind?
shouldn't be funded.
Well, they're going to have to look at subscriptions, things like that, aren't they? I mean, to be fair, this is not saying anything new. This is Lucy Fraser, Culture Secretary, saying this, but BBC employees I've spoken to all realise they're going to have to find other funding methods. This is kind of, well, not other jobs, maybe, yeah, but other funding methods, because everyone knows the licence fee is on its way out eventually.
Yeah, because so many people now don't watch television in the traditional sense of having a set. So, and how many people are still following EastEnders?
Well, imagine having a newspaper force people to buy it, and that's what this is with the BBC. I mean, it's just me, but I don't think there's a place in a democracy, in an open society, for a state service like this that forces people. I think let's just say there were no BBC tomorrow. We would miss some of the great programs, but life would go on.
Yeah, I feel like for balance,
I don't know. I never watch any of the
other
programs.
opinions are available, and some people like the BBC because we've all been pretty harsh against it. But let's stick with the Times. Let's have a look at this. The government's new media bill might force Netflix shows to be impartial. I, for one, am sick of biased serial killers, Lewis.
Yeah, well, this is an incredible story. This is more. It's all the same. You know what? I basically look back with fondness when every issue was a trans issue. Do you remember those times? This is, it says Netflix, new media laws could have a chilling effect, claims Netflix. And Netflix says that impartiality requirements proposed by the government could have an effect on documentaries such as Jimmy Savile, The British Horror Story. I don't know what impartiality would mean. Is maybe they would have to say that Jimmy Savile was a great guy. You know, maybe not mention. He did a lot of other things besides what he did to those kids.
A lot of work for charity. A
lot of work for charity. We liked his hair, whatever, the music years or something. I mean, how can the government wants to be in everything. I want to tell the people something horrible is happening.
Yeah, well, I don't get this, Bruce. It's saying that we might have to have impartiality laws for Netflix. How's that going to work?
Is this not just merely objecting to some of these documentaries and their content? Is this just, a fancier way of saying, actually, I don't agree with what you're doing stuff about, you're going to have to change it? And what is the British Horror Story? Has anyone seen that? Do you know what that is?
I've heard. It's very good.
Right, okay.
I've heard it's good. But at the same time, I think what this is it's a way for them to get their little fingers into controlling Netflix, just as how they demand impartiality from the media, from us, basically. And they say, well, you weren't impartial. Like, it's quite possible they could say, well, you did not question the insanity that comes out of my mouth as strongly as you could have.
He has. It's just been refuted.
They might be having a little go at Netflix, as you say, because they basically put out a load of lefty content. It could be that, but I don't see how it's workable, personally.
I think it's the other way around.
OK. All right, well, that's it for part 3. But coming up in the final section, how to get your cat to love you, the woman who survived on just wine, and why Americans are ignorant. Not my words. It's in the papers. See you in 2.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Hello, I'm Calvin Robinson. Do not miss my Common Sense Crusade Saturdays at 7 p.m. Join me for some in-depth discussions on faith. Is that not the start of the slippery slope? It's very much so. And the big moral questions of the day. I'm baffled.
You've got some nerve.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's do the Times with a story about why it's good to throw your child in the mud, Lewis.
Yeah, why it's good to let your child get grubby. And I thought they were going to say why it's good to let your child get chubby. But basically it says that kids who get dirty, eat dirt, wallow in the dirt, come from dirty households, or have less IBD, which is inflammatory
bowel disease. How do you not know that? This is like your area.
I do know it because I don't have anything. But it also said it basically took a list of 50,000 people and not even 50,000. I think it's like 6.4 million children, and found out which ones had it, and then did epidemiology. It's the worst kind of science that's done. It's not a random controlled science. It's like just going back in time and asking people, how clean is your house? Is your house clean? And the houses that were cleaner the kids had more problems. But it also said that eating foods high in sugar can cause IBD, high in processing, which can cause IBD, older mothers, antibiotics, and rich families.
But it does say, it does say here that children who grew up in a home with 1 toilet rather than 2 were more robust. They were less likely
Is that because they were poor, or because there was just so much dirt in that 1 toilet? Not to be gross.
Do you think they were poor just because they had 1 toilet?
Hey,
maybe just
it's the article saying it.
I'm only asking. It's purely conjecture.
My dad grew up with an outside toilet, no toilet, so I'm not being classist.
So he wouldn't know what
we had a toilet,
either.
but the funny thing about this, Bruce, is actually the poor could end up winning, because it's basically saying that poorer people, according to this, have a 65% lower chance of developing these diseases. So if you think about it, they could end up rising. Everyone else gets wiped out because they become soft, too much hygiene. Then the poorer people.
Or intolerance to avocado or something like that.
But then again, we don't know where these poor people are. It could be a poor person in a foreign country is eating a better diet than the richest person in this country. And so this is one of those things you would have to look. Every article I've ever seen in the Times is a lie. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And it is the Times. Every article, there's something weird about this. You could look at it, and this is what's called a meta study, where they take 16 different studies and combine them. You'd have to look at each study to see whether these studies are good. There could be a lot of bad studies in it.
Okay, so don't trust viruses all the time is what we've learned today.
Yeah.
Let's do the mail then. And do you have a Neanderthal nose, Bruce? Not you, literally, but...
No, but people in general, because apparently if you're unhappy with the shape of your nose, you can now trace it back to your Neanderthal ancestors due to some neogene or something like that that's been discovered now. So are you happy with your snout, your schnoz?
No, my nose is quite large, and basically,
a Roman nose.
Yeah, I would say this is basically a racist story. It's saying anyone with a big nose does not come from a northern European country where you did not. So you've got very small noses.
Well, I've got a decent nose. I mean, that's the one thing.
No,
some people have called me ugly. Some of them on this show tonight.
Oh, wow.
But my nose is one thing that's actually been praised. Actually, I think it's got not as good as it was a few years ago. It's actually decent. And can you even admit that, Lewis?
I can admit it. I would say it's attractive, but other people would say it's a small nose and that's very feminine, and it's not.
How dare you?
I'm not going to say who said that.
Who has said that?
But my nose is a larger nose, which means that I have more Neanderthal blood, which means I have more African.
But are you surprised, really, Lewis, to learn that? Because if out of all of us, I'd have said, like, Lewis, he's the most Neanderthal. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because of just the raw energy you've got, this raw kind of fiery, out of control.
And also where my people come from. Well,
I wasn't going there, but...
Yeah, but that's what this article basically said. If you've got a big nose, it means you come from, some other places. If you've got a small nose, it means you're up in Scotland and it's cold and you need to.
So you think it's a kind of anti?
That's what it said.
Neanderthal.
So you think this is nasal racism?
Yeah, he thinks it's dog whistling.
Yeah.
Or nose whistling or something. Okay.
Okay.
All right, well, we seem to have ended that one, so let's do the Metro now. Let's do the Metro. And a woman who drank nothing but wine for 5 days. Isn't that just all women now?
Yes, exactly.
Who's got this one? I'm sorry. Bruce is looking at me disgusted. Is it? Go on.
It is basically. This story is not true either. Okay? Because number one is according to, I actually did a little research. It said that a woman stranded in the Australian bush, which is another way for saying the woods, survived, or whatever, the desert, survived by drinking wine for 5 days. And according to all sources on the internet, it is almost impossible to survive.
She survived. She also had lollipops, Lewis.
Yeah.
She was a very lot of common sense. She went away for a trip, and like anyone, she brought wine and lollipops, and the wine saved her. She stayed in the car. She didn't wander off into the bush. I mean, it is quite strange. She doesn't actually drink alcohol, but she had this wine. The only problem is she's now an alcoholic. But
according to Mr. Google, that when you drink wine, you lose, for every 250 millimeter glass, you lose 350 millimeters of water. So you have a net loss of 100. So it is not hydrating.
Go on, Bruce.
More importantly, one bottle of wine, 5 days.
I know.
Most of my friends can do 3 in a night. I'm going to come over and say to you, I'm now beginning to find some of this disingenuous.
Yes.
Because unless she was having tiny little sips...
How do you survive for 5 days?
Exactly. And what kind of wine was it? We don't even know that.
Maybe it was the lollipops. That's a possibility.
But speaking of Australia, if anybody's interested in my new calendar...
Oh, can I see that?
Yes, it's a fantastic calendar. And it's printed, it's on order.
We were going to go to another story, but Lewis has made it impossible with his calendar. You apparently sold 12 of these, Lewis.
We have... does 12 sound like a lot?
I'm amazed you've sold 12, and they're 17 quid. This is not an advert.
17 quid. It's high quality. Can you feel the quality of it? Can you see the pictures?
I don't want to touch that picture. I feel uncomfortable touching that picture.
Exactly. There's a little bit of female nudity in this thing. But there's other ones that are quite gay. Quite very...
Oh, wow. Everything's to tiny noses, being gay.
This is for you, Bruce. Anyway, go to my website at lewisschaffer.com.
Okay.
Oh, my
Bruce,
God.
We've got 6 seconds. Anything to end on after that bombshell? I actually let Lewis do that because we didn't have enough time to go to another story, so I'm sorry to the viewers.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, all right, that was that. That was a strange ending. The show's pretty much over, but let's take another quick look at Tuesday's front pages. So the Times has thank you each and everyone, which is, of course, is about the coronation. The Telegraph PM skip the GP for common illnesses. And you'll just have to imagine the front pages are there. The Eye pass on higher interest rates to savers, big banks told. The Mirror goes with cost of living crisis, Bill's agony. And that's that guy called Bill. He's having a heck of a time. The Express goes with we thank each and every one of you. Very similar headline. And finally, the Daily Star. We're in a real mess, but who can tell? And those are your front pages. And Lewis is crying for some reason I don't understand. But that's all for tonight. Thanks to Bruce and Lewis. Simon is back in the big boy chair tomorrow, so join us again at 11 p.m.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the people's channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast.